The history of this is that Meg Patterson, while working as an abdominal surgeon at the Tunghua Hospital in Hong Kong, had come across Dr. Wen, W-E-N, and his use of electroacupuncture for anesthesia. And Dr. Wen had discovered, quite accidentally, that many of his patients were on heroin. At this time, 1970 to 72 in Hong Kong, a $500 a day habit in the United States would cost less than a pack of cigarettes in Hong Kong. And about 20% of the gross population that would go through the Tunghua Hospital in Hong Kong, Kowloon, were heroin addicts. So doing hundreds of surgeries a month, a certain percentage of these people who were heroin addicts began to report, I'm not feeling any discomfort. I don't have withdrawal pains. I seem to have an altered state. They would go back on the street after surgery, get a fix from their usual mother, and find that the fix had not given them the same effect. There were a number of fights because they thought their heroin was being cut, etc. But it was a very interesting political situation. So Dr. Wen did what any cool scientist would do. He began doing rat studies. I'll digress for a moment here and say that heroin, or opiates as a class, opium, morphine, heroin, and a number of the synthetics, simply overload the body's production of normal endorphins. Beta endorphin was discovered around 1975 as a painkiller that the body manufactures that is about 100 times as effective as morphine as a painkiller. When you don't have it, you get the aches and pains, the withdrawal, the stomach cramps, the nausea, the insomnia, all of these horrible things that attend withdrawal. When you give your body massive doses, or even small doses in the beginning of any of the opiates, the part of the brain that says build neurotransmitters simply says shut down. We have too much. So when you get off of the substance, when you try to kick it cold turkey, the body is in agony because those little factories in the brain simply don't produce the endorphins. The word endorphin comes from endogenous, orphan after morphine. It simply means endogenous or built-in morphine. What Dr. Wen did was to hook the rats on heroin, have two groups, one control and one active. He would cut off the heads of the rats and run chromatography, electrophoresis chromatography, to find out what some of these trace proteins were in the control and the sample. The rats who had been hooked on heroin and suddenly cut off, that were pretty miserable rats, showed that it took maybe a week to 3 weeks before the neurotransmitters would again reappear, the exact range of time that the withdrawal symptoms occupy somebody coming off of a narcotic. The rats, which were taken totally cold turkey off of heroin, which had been stimulated with two little clips, and I have the photographs of all this in the documentation, fascinating work, and were given electro-stimulation at around 111 hertz, and we'll talk about this later, showed that within 40 minutes of the time that the voltage was applied, the brain's ability to produce its own neurotransmitters had been rehabilitated, and that within 3 to 5 days it had reached normal. Dr. Wen was inserting number 30 needles. I think it was 0.3 of a millimeter beneath the surface of the skin at a 30-degree angle, and he was putting alligator, this is all in the open literature, putting alligator clips to these needles. Meg Patterson found a spot on the mastoid process right up here at the top of the ear, using external electrodes, not penetrating the skin, no blood and guts, that was just as effective. The neurosystems people, in doing a study, found that by far the most effective spot is this little hollow behind the TMJ, the temporal mandibular joint. this accesses various acupuncture points on what's called the triple warmer. This has been researched for about 20 years, and it works every time. And so far, we've only had 3 units returned to us in over a year, and these were by people who tried to take them apart to build their own, and they tried to dig into the stuff and sent them back because they couldn't do it. The people who used them, yeah?
Can I say something about that?
Sure.
I have a friend who's part of my group, and he works in the movie industry. And he has a friend who's been on cocaine for 11 years. And so I said, I have a device that he may want to try if he's truly interested in getting off of it. And he said, well, all right. He said, I'll try it. So he took it down to the movie lot. The guy's been trying it now for, this is his 6th day. He's off of cocaine, and he's thoroughly delighted. So now everybody else on the movie set, of which a number of people you can imagine use drugs, are extremely interested in it. And so that's been my experience with it so far.
And this is the device that was used on Peter Townshend when he was flown in on almost a hospital bed type airplane to the John Wayne Airport. He'd taken a massive dose of heroin before he left London, enough to get him to the States. He was absolutely green and yellow when they took him off the plane, and Meg put this device on his head, and within about 40 minutes, of course, all of you have read this story. It's been reprinted in Penthouse. It's been reprinted in Omni magazine. He was rehabilitated after having spent a fortune in various clinics around the world. Peter Townshend finally got off, kicked the habit, and is now happy, healthy, clean, producing again. All of this is history. At any rate, they were getting results with the device, as primitive as it was. And it began to appear that the Neuro Electric Therapy group, the Magnet group, either was not going to produce anything, they were either unable or unwilling to do it. Now this could lead to a great deal of speculation as to who got to whom, whether the mafia was involved or some of the pharmaceutical houses or what have you. So I decided, well, let's research this thing a little bit further and bring out a box that will do some good, which I did. I gave away a number of these to friends and used them as guinea pigs. So we developed a system. We broke the price barrier. Most of these things sold from $5,000 up. That had everything in it that was necessary for the brain to rehabilitate its own production of neurotransmitters. The stress-related symptoms that are recognized are insomnia, addiction, anxiety, and depression. That about 95% of the people who use these devices for a period of less than a month find complete reversal. All of the plateaus have been noticed by most of the workers at between 20 and 30 minutes. 40 minutes is red line. If you go 45 minutes, they begin coming down the other side of the slope. It won't do any damage, but you will undo the benefits. So we recommend that the device be used for only about 20 to 30 minutes a day. If you have a basket case like Peter Townshend, Meg put the thing on him 24 hours a day for the first several days. We think that's overdoing it. That's overkill. Too much medicine is worse than not enough. So in the case of an alcoholic who's into DTs, bedridden, throwing up, really in bad shape, we say 2 sessions, 40 minutes in the morning, 40 minutes at night a day. When the person is more or less back together, we say then cut that back down to 40 minutes once a day. That seems to be enough. It only works about 45% effectively with tobacco. With Dr. Elizabeth Long's work with heroin, morphine, it's been about 95%. With Valium and Librium, about 95%. The only thing that we can't kick almost instantly is tobacco. That's the most addictive substance known to man.
Who's Dr. Elizabeth Long?
She works with Valerie Hunt and has a practice in the Hollywood area.
Did she use this to cure addiction?
Oh, yes. Oh, many doctors have. The history of this is that some doctor will buy 1 unit and pass it around, and then the next order will be for 3 or 4, the next will be for 10, the next one will be for a couple of dozen. So it's a thoroughly tested, viable approach. There's no placebo, witchcraft, maybe in it. The animal studies have proven that. It works.